Once upon a time, in a busy town called Okeoba, there lived a woman named Abeni. She had grown up in poverty, watching as those around her struggled with money. Abeni always dreamed of wealth, comfort, and power, things she felt she deserved but never had. This desire for riches took over her life. One evening, Abeni overheard about a powerful ritual that could grant great wealth. It was dangerous, and only those with the strongest desire dared to try it. Desperate, Abeni went to the only person in town who knew about these forbidden rituals, an old woman named Iyagba, who was known for her knowledge of magic. Abeni visited Iyagba late at night, bringing gifts like cowries, wine, and incense. The old woman, with her deep-set eyes and raspy voice, welcomed Abeni and said, "What you seek comes with a great cost. Are you ready to pay the price for such wealth?" she asked. Without hesitation, Abeni agreed. She was ready to pay any price for the riches she wanted. Iyagba led Abeni into a dark room full of strange items and symbols. The ritual began with Iyagba chanting old spells, her voice rising and falling like the wind. As the ritual went on, Iyagba gave Abeni a bowl of thick dark liquid and told her to drink it. As soon as Abeni drank, she felt a burning pain in her chest. It was as if her soul was being torn apart. She cried out in pain, but Iyagba kept chanting. The pain grew worse and Abeni fell to the floor. When the ritual ended, Abeni laid on the ground, weak and shaking. Iyagba leaned over her and whispered, "Your wish is granted, but it comes with a price. Every 3 weeks, you must renew the ritual by letting 5 rich men suckle from your breast. If you don't, the infection in your chest would spread and eventually kill you." Despite her pain, Abeni nodded. She knew there was no turning back. The rituals was done and her fate was set. The next day, Abeni's life changed dramatically. Money began to flow into her life effortlessly. She attracted wealthy suitors, landed big business deals, and soon became the talk of Okeoba. A mansion filled with luxurious items became a symbol of her success. But beneath her new life, a dark secret grew. Abeni's breast, the source of her wealth, started to show signs of infection. They swelled painfully and black sores appeared. Every time the infection worsened, Abeni was reminded of the cost she had to pay. Every 3 weeks, she sought out wealthy men, business, politicians, and traders, using her charm to lure them. The men, attracted by her beauty and wealth, did not know the true nature of the rituals. They fed from her unknowingly, keeping her wealth intact. As time went on, Abeni became more consumed by her secrets. She lived in constant fear of missing the 3 weeks deadline, knowing her life depended on it. With each cycle, the infection grew worse and the pain became unbearable. The town people began to notice odd things about Abeni. There were rumors about her disappearing every 3 weeks. Mysterious wealthy men visit her home at strange hours, and a dark shadow that seems to follow her. Whispers spread, making Abeni a figure of mystery and fear. Despite the growing rumors, Abeni's wealth continued to grow, and she kept up the appearance of success and glamour. But the burden of the rituals weighed heavily on her, casting a shadow over her achievements. She had achieved the riches she once wanted, but at a terrible cost. Her secret, though hidden from the world, was a constant reminder of the price she paid for her desires. Abeni's story became a cautionary tale in Okeoba, a story about ambition, sacrifice, and dark consequences of seeking powers through forbidden means. The once poor woman who had sought wealth find herself trapped in a life of luxury, tainted by pain and fear, forever bound by the ritual that gave her everything she had ever wanted. As the weeks went by, Abeni's luxurious life grew even more extravagant, but the infection in her breast became worse. The pains was a constant reminder of the deal she had made. Each time she completed the ritual, she felt a bit relieved, but it came at higher cost. Her body weakened and her soul darkened. Despite this, her wealth continued to increase and she remained the richest woman in Okeoba, envied by everyone. Every 3 weeks, the ritual became more challenging. Abeni had to find new wealthy men to meet the cost demand. She became skilled at seduction, using her beauty to attract businessmen, chiefs, and even visiting dignitaries. They were drawn to her, leaving her home without realizing the dark magic involved. But beneath a confident exterior, Abeni was falling apart. The infection, once only on her breast, began to spread. Her chest throbbed with a deep burning pain, and dark veins stretched from the sores. Her skin turned pale, and her eyes grew tired and heavy. The infection was now visible. Men she seduced started noticing the black spots on her body, though they dare not ask her about them. One day, after a ritual, Abeni looked in the mirror and saw the damage. Her once beautiful skin was covered in dark patches, and her breast was swollen and misshaped. Fear gripped her heart. She realized that no matter how much wealth she had gained, her body was being destroyed from within. Abeni became isolated and paranoid. She avoided the villagers, afraid someone might uncover her secrets. She built high walls around her mansion, both physically and emotionally, cutting herself off from everyone. Her only interaction were during the rituals with the wealthy men. Even then, she felt completely alone. One night, as the deadline of the next ritual approached, Abeni was overwhelmed with the dread. The infection had spread more than ever, and she was feverish. She knew she needed to complete the ritual, but the thought of it filled her with disgust. She could no longer stand what she had become. Desperate Abeni went back to Iyagba's hut. The old woman, sensing Abeni's presence, greeted her with a knowing smile. "The cost is becoming unbearable, isn't it?" she said. Abeni, weakened by pain and fear, fell to her knees. "I can't handle it anymore," she cried, tears streaming down her face. "The infection is spreading and I feel like I'm dying. Is there any way to end this? Can I stop this curse?" Iyagba smile faded and her eyes grew cold. "You made your choice, Abeni. You wanted wealth and you got it. But every gift has a price. The only way to end the curse is to let the infection consume you." Or, she paused, her gaze sharp, "you can continue the ritual and live with your riches until the end." Abeni's heart sank. She had known deep down that there would be no easy way out of this. The path she had chosen was one of darkness, and now it has trapped her. The infection was worsening, and finding men for the rituals was becoming harder. Despite the pain, the lure of wealth still held her tight. Reluctantly, Abeni went back to her mansion. The pain in her chest throbbed with every step, and she knew that she had only days before the next ritual was due. The infection had become unbearable, but the fear of losing her wealth was greater than the pain. She reached out to 5 of the wealthy men in the area, arranging private meetings with each under the pretense of business. Each man came, unaware of the real reason of their visits. Drawn by Abeni's charm, she performed the rituals as before, experiencing the usual temporary relief as the infection lessened. But the pains was greater than ever. The rituals became painful as swollen, discolored breasts caused her agony, and the men, though wealthy and powerful, began to sense something was wrong. A local chief noticed the dark patches on her skin and the feverish look in her eyes. He left her mansion uneasy, sensing that Abeni's wealth was linked to something far darker. Rumors started spreading about Abeni's strange rituals and the mysterious infection on her body. The wealthy men of Okeoba grew suspicious, making it harder for Abeni to find participants for the ritual. The infection grew more aggressive with each passing week, and Abeni knew her time was running out. The infection had taken over Abeni's body. The once vibrant woman who had captivated the wealthiest men in Okeoba was now a mere shadow of her former self. Her skin had turned pale and grey, with the dark vein spreading from her chest to her arm and neck. Her once beautiful face was now skinny, and her eyes were heavily swollen. The men who had once been easily drowned by her were now avoiding her. Rumor about her mysterious illness, secretive behavior, and the dark rituals spread through the town faster than the infection itself. Abeni could no longer attract men with her beauty and charm. She had become a figure of fear and suspicion. Desperation drove her to the extreme measures. Each 3-week cycle brought her closer to death, and if she missed the ritual, the infection would worsen. She felt her body decaying slowly, and every day reminded her of her pact with the darkness. She began offering large sums of money to wealthy men, trying to bribe them to come to her mansion and participate in the rituals. But even the promise of the riches could not overcome their growing fear. One evening, as the deadline for the ritual approached, Abeni was alone in her mansion. The candles dimmed dangerously, casting shadows on the walls. The pain in her chest was unbearable, and her breathing was shallow. She knew she had to perform the ritual soon, or the infection would take her life. Desperate Abeni, wandering through the streets of Okeoba, disguised under a heavy cloth, looking for any wealthy man who might help her. But every door she knocked on was closed, and the villagers who saw her turned away in fear, their eyes filled with suspicions and disgust. With no other option, Abeni returned to Yagba's hut. The woman, sensing her approach, greeted her at the door with a knowing smile. "You look worse than before, child," Yagba said, her voice laced with mock sympathy. "I warned you that this path was not for the weak." Abeni, weak and trembling, fell on her knees before the old woman. "Please, Yagba," she begged, her voice with desperation. "The men won't come anymore. I can't find anyone willingly to do this ritual. Is there no other way? Can you help me?" she cried. Yagba's smile faded. Her eyes grew cold. "The rituals cannot be undone. You are bound by your choices. The only way to survive is to fulfill the part. If you can't find the men willingly, then perhaps you have to take them by force." Abeni's heart sank at the suggestion, but she knew deep down that the old woman was right. The infection had progressed too far for her to turn back now. If she did not complete the ritual, the darkness would consume her completely. Abeni turned to more evil method. She began stalking the wealthiest men in Okeoba, watching their movements and learning their routes. As the next 3 weeks deadline approached, she lured them to her home with false promises of business deals or urgent personal matters. Once inside her mansion, she trapped them and forced them into the rituals. Their fear and confusion only fueled her desperation, but she was beyond caring. The need to complete the ritual and fed off the infection consumed her. The more she forced the rituals, the darker her soul became. The infection no longer just affects her body, it began to taint her very essence. The men she trapped seemed drained of more than just compliance. They left her mansion shaken and disoriented, and none of them ever returned. Abeni's wealth, although still intact, became meaningless to her. A mansion, once a symbol of luxury, now felt like a prison. The once grand halls echoed with her loneliness, and the wealth she had desperately sought now felt like a cage of her own making. The infection grew worse with each cycle, and the relief the ritual provided became shorter and less effective. She was losing control of her own body. The villagers no longer whisper about Abeni. They openly spoke of her fall from grace, calling her cursed and a witch who had meddled with dark magic. Parents warned their children to stay away from her mansion, and even the wealthiest men in town, once her companion, avoided her at all costs. Abeni's world had shrunk to the walls of her once beautiful mansion, now more like a crumbling prison than a grand palace. Her body, destroyed by the infection, was barely a shadow of what it had been. Her skin, once smooth and glowing, was now covered in dark patches. Her breasts were heavily swollen from the cost she had called upon herself. The men who had once admired her now avoided her with fear. The rituals that had brought her great wealth were now her only way to survive. But each one was becoming more painful and dangerous. The infection did not just hurt her body, it began to torment her mind. She was haunted by nightmares of her own death, imagining her body turning to dust. At night, she woke up sweating, her heart burning, as if the darkness inside her was trying to escape. The wealthy men she had deceived in the past no longer trusted her. News of her sickness and strange behavior spread, and no one wanted to come near her. Her once desire for wealth was now replaced by a deep fear of death. She knew she would not last longer without the ritual, but finding men willingly to help had become nearly impossible. In desperation, she forced her servants, who were neither rich nor powerful, into the rituals, but it did not work as well. Her wealth, which had once been plentiful, began to disappear. Without the ritual to renew her riches, her businesses failed, the property she owned was sold, and her fortunes gradually faded away. The villagers who had once envied her now shunned her. They saw her mansion as cursed, and rumors spread that Abeni was haunted by the spirits of men she had tricked. As the infection spread, Abeni became too bedridden. Her strength fading, her once grand home was now falling apart with decay and neglect everywhere. The tall walls she had built to keep others out now felt like they were closing in on her, making her a prisoner of her own choice. In her desperation, Abeni went to Yagba one last time, hoping for a solution to her suffering. She crawled into the old woman's hut, trembling with pain and weakness. Yagba, please, I can't keep going like this. I'm dying. There must be a way to end this, she said. Yagba looked at Abeni with a mix of pity and coldness. I warned you about the price, she said, her voice as cold as the outside wind. You wanted wealth and you got it, but your greed has its cost. Abeni, shaking with fear and frustration, fell to her knees. I will do anything. Please, is there another way? Yagba looked at her for a long time before speaking again. You can't escape the price of this path. You made your choice, and now you must deal with it. But, she said softly, there is a way to end this infection. It will cost you everything. Desperate for relief, Abeni nodded. Anything, I will do anything. To break this curse, Yagba said, you must give up the very thing you sought, your wealth, all of it. Everything you gained must be given away. Only then the infection will leave you, but you will have nothing left. Abeni's heart sank. Her wealth had been the reason for her suffering, but it was also what she had fought so hard for. The thought of giving it all up terrified her, yet she knew that if she did not, the infection would destroy her completely. Torn between her greed and her survival, Abeni hesitated, but as the pain grew stronger, she realized she had no choice. She could not bear the thought of dying like this, slowly rotting from the inside. With a heavy heart, Abeni agreed. Yagba nodded and gave her a small bowl of dark bitter herbs. "Drink this," the old woman said, "and tomorrow you will give away all your wealth. Only when you are left with nothing will the infection leave your body." Abeni drank the potion, feeling its bitterness deeply. The next morning, she returned to her crumbling mansion, weak but determined. She began the painful process of giving away everything: her land, her properties, her riches. All of it was given to the people of Okioba, many of whom were shocked by her sudden generosity. By the end of the day, Abeni stood alone in her empty mansion, the rooms bare and cold. She had nothing left: no wealth, no power, no status. The infection still clung to her, but she could feel it losing its grip as the darkness inside her was pulled out by her sacrifice.